Oh, I'm gonna. Well, maybe. There we go.
Slow down, you move too fast. Gotta make the morning last. Kicking down the cobblestones. Looking for fun and feeling groovy. Ba da 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 da. Feeling groovy.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the bridge. Today is our 102nd broadcast or episode, and we have a great guest today. This is Monika Robinson, and Sandy's got a quote for us, and then we'll get right to the point of learning all about Monika.
Good day, everyone. We're glad you're joining us today. So, our quote today is from Marilyn Monroe. And, she had a challenging life, but there is a quote that she said: keep smiling because life is a beautiful thing and there's so much to smile about.
Okay.
So, that must have been on one of her good days, smiling and work through it. It's a life every day, and above ground is a good day.
That's right. Smiling generates positive energy, that's for
That's
sure.
right.
And
That's
it
right.
makes the face look better, right? Well, Monika Robinson, welcome to the bridge. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll kind of get started and learning more about your journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, I am a mental fitness coach. I work with leaders in education spaces mainly who are just exhausted and want to lead in healthier ways. And I'm also a former educator. I taught kindergarten and third grade for a long time. I was an instructional coach. I've worked in nonprofit, worked a lot around education, and I live in Dallas, Texas.
Awesome. Well, you're right in our wheelhouse. We're both former educators too.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Sandy specialized in early childhood ed, and I taught second and third grade for years before I became a principal. So, um, and I'm a coach now too. So, we kind of talk the same language. We kind of attract a lot of our educators, and we're happy because happiness and joy is a lot about learning how to learn,
Mm-hmm.
and how to process all that change that's in our lives and to make those mental shifts. So talk to me about sort of your how you work with your clients to shift that energy from exhaustion into
Yeah.
positive movement forward.
Yeah. Good question. So, what I notice in education is that it's full of high achieving women mostly, especially K-12, full of high achieving women who often don't pour back into themselves, and they tend to give their all to work. And on their priority list, their self, is dead last,
Oh,
right?
sure, yeah.
And so my mission is to change that because people should not be putting themselves last and
Right.
putting work first. And like recently, I heard from a principal who had been diagnosed with breast cancer. And she wanted to put off her treatment for the cancer until after testing at her school was done. And the doctors were like, no, you must get treated immediately,
Right.
and that's just how deeply ingrained this kind of like hyper achieving, I must work, I must be selfless, kind of like mindset that
Mhm.
a lot of women tend to have.
Yeah.
And so, how I work with them is using a framework called positive intelligence. And positive intelligence works with the brain, because a lot of times we don't realize that our brain is really sabotaging us. It's telling us all these thoughts, all of these limitations, why we can't do this. It's very, our minds are very judgy, always judging ourselves, our appearance, the mistakes. And it causes a lot of stress. So I work with women around quieting all that mind chatter and putting themselves first.
That's awesome. I'm just learning this too. What I'm finding out about the brain, and I'm sure this goes right along with your positive, what did you call it?
Positive intelligence.
Intelligence, is that, it's all about reframing our thoughts in our brain. And what our brain is stuck on, and it's because of all this urgency and we have to do this and that, we're stuck in fight or flight, in our amygdala. And we have to get better about getting it up here in our prefrontal cortex, where we can organize it and relax our brain and relax our bodies, because cortisol is not good for our body 24/7. And so our bodies wear out, and unfortunately, that seems to be the first signal that something's haywire. I wish it weren't. I wish it were, way back when we could do more about it than just have to go to the doctor and get fixed.
Yeah.
Well, going back to people giving, you can't pour out what you don't have inside your own vessel. And I think that's a word picture that helps you remember in your own heart and your own soul, to be able to pour out to others, because that's part of our desire, or that's part of our strength, is being there as a servant to others. But then we also need to still, like you said, Monica, be able to turn that around and make sure that our cup is full.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And we hear that all the time, like, put your oxygen mask on first. Like, women, we hear that analogy.
Right.
We know it, but we don't follow it. We're not doing it day to day. We're worried about everybody else, our kids, our spouse, our job. And it's just, by the end of the day, when you get home, you're just completely drained, and there's nothing else left to pour back into yourself. So that's why I believe in putting yourself first. It's not selfish. It's what you need to do in order to serve and help other people, is to put yourself first.
Yeah. And the other thing that is very common in education, also in women, is, I call it overfunctioning. You know what I mean? We jump in, and for our kids, for our husbands, for our staff, we do stuff for them, and we think we're helping them, but we're actually just disabling them.
Yeah.
And, that's huge. And it's really hard to get over that, because somehow it was ingrained in us when we were little girls.
Yeah, it was. And I call it detaching. Like, I help women detach emotionally from work, especially because sometimes our identities are so tied into what we do that we're so emotionally attached to outcomes at work. And sometimes things that don't even matter that much. We want to, be in control of everything that's happening. We want our ideas to be heard. And I used to very much be that person who wanted to, contribute and like do everything, and wanted everybody to believe what I believed in. I was very emotionally attached to the work. But once I started sitting back, letting go of some of that attachment, letting things happen. And the same thing with people. When you're trying to solve your kids' problems or solve your husband's problems, you're just draining your energy instead of empowering them to solve their own problems.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
We just got done with a book series. We started a book series about 6 months ago. And the first book we read was The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins.
That's on my list. I love her, and I'm going to read that book.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well,
it's really good.
you can listen to our podcast. We don't read it for you, but we there's 4 of us on there, and you're welcome to come on. But and we record them, so you can at least get a glimpse of some of the things that were important to us.
I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that is so powerful is that the energy we spend trying to control each other actually needs to come back to us and find out what we can do. She talks about let them do what they need to do. We can't control their decisions or the outcomes. They're going to have to learn as they go, just like we did. And then let me go ahead and show up the way I feel directed to do about showing up. So you can still be there for a person, but you don't have to buy into the fact that you are going to fix something, because that's not your job.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it goes kind of the next step of not taking things personally. For years, I know I always said to my clients, feedback is information, not definition.
Yes.
And that's good. But Mel goes a little further than that, and just let them, if they're going to behave badly, let the consequence fall on them, because it wasn't what you decided to do. So it's a wonderful book. So you'll enjoy it too. But please join us on the podcast and
I will
listen. And if you ever want to join us, you can.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
So what? Tell me a little bit about the nonprofit people that you serve.
So I worked in nonprofit for 6 years, and an education nonprofit, right? So I see the same patterns that I see in education, because women tend to work in nonprofit organizations. They work in mission-driven, service-oriented, sectors, right? And nonprofit is full of women. And it's the same high-achieving women that are in education, and they're giving everything and giving their all to the mission. And so when I was working in nonprofit, I noticed that. I noticed a lot of really stressed out people who were so emotionally attached to the mission, attached to the outcomes. And, it didn't always create the best environment when you're in leadership and you're stressed, because that stress carries over and passes over to the team, and creates stress from everybody when the leader is stressed. So what I want to do is work with those leadership teams who maybe there's conflict on the leadership team, or maybe there's a lot of groupthink, or maybe everybody's stressed out and their saboteurs are taking over. And saboteurs are automatic, habitual thought patterns that we don't even know are sabotaging us. And they have names like avoider, pleaser, controller. And all of that comes from Positive Intelligence. Highly recommend the book if you hadn't read that before. It's a New York Times bestseller written by Shirzad Chamine. But I help leadership teams discover their saboteurs. They take an assessment. The assessment's free, by the way. Anyone can take it. They take the assessment, and then we work together to get to know each other again. It's a reintroduction, and they build the self-awareness, and they're able to better function as a team. And I like what you said earlier, Sue, about the sense of urgency. And what I want to say about that is we cannot attach a sense of urgency to everything. And I think a lot of women do that in workplaces. A lot of people in general, probably men do it too. Everything can't be urgent, because if everything's urgent, nothing's really urgent. And you're just spinning your wheels like a hamster, trying to do all of these things. So I help them release that sense of urgency that sometimes we think it's a good thing to have a sense of urgency, but when it can go too far. So, turning that off, scaling that back, and prioritizing is a much better way.
Yeah, breathing before you make that decision, and then getting clear with the team about whose job it is to make that decision. It could, because it gets very, we throw around the term site-based management, and people think that means everybody on the team's supposed to decide. And that's not true.
Not for everything. Yeah, there's impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time it's not true. Most of the time the leader needs to decide, but it needs to be with maybe a certain amount of input. And I used to put a chart on the back of everybody's agenda about questions to ask the sponsor, we call the leader, um, questions to ask to find out whose decision it is. Because it takes everybody off the hook if they don't have to decide, if they can just give input and put their thoughts in there.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Tell me about this saboteur quiz that you have. Do you give it to the whole team?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's free. I highly recommend anybody to take it. It is so eye-opening. Husbands and wives can take it, spouses, partners, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever it is. It's amazing for those types of relationships, and then also for work relationships.
Yeah.
It just helps you to get to know the other person better, to see, what their triggers are and where they're coming from, because it's really easy to make assumptions about people. And I think we do that a lot. We assume their intent. And a lot of times, as humans, we assume bad intent sometimes because our brains are naturally looking for the negative, like, well, he did this because he doesn't like me or whatever. And then that wasn't even the reason,
Right.
So, taking the assessment is really helpful for building that self-awareness. Like for me, I learned that my top saboteur is controller. And so a controller has an anxiety-based need to take control of people's actions and situations. So that's why I learned to detach from, work and from other things, because I don't need to control every situation. I can sit back and let it play out, know.
Yeah.
But, one thing I will tell you about the saboteurs is that they are actually our greatest natural strengths. Saboteurs are our strengths, but we've gotten into the habit of overusing and abusing them. So my strengths are confident, action-oriented, resourceful, persistent. But when I overuse that, then it becomes controlling. So,
It's subconsciously. I mean, because I can imagine not only does that help me understand other people, it really pushes myself with self-awareness, like all of those kinds of tests do. But, if I know that I'm a controller, I might language what I say to people differently than I would automatically. I won't say it maybe the same way my mother said it to me or wherever it came from.
That wouldn't be nice.
And that's where people get hooked in assuming wrong things.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're a natural born leader, that is hard to let go of. It's hard. It's hard to be able to say, okay, I'm going to give you this opportunity to go forward on this instead of me having to do it. Let's watch you do it, and I'm here to support you as you go, kind of thing. Because we have a distinct idea of how it should look when it's all done, or that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's hard to let go of that control issue sometimes.
Very much. But I've learned, and I'm learning every day. We're always on the journey. You're never going to get. Your perfection is not a destination that anyone's ever going to achieve.
No, that's true. We have a gal, and she just finished a book. Well, actually, she just finished the audio portion of it, and she does a little assessment, and she says that it's called "Who's in My Flock" or something. She uses birds, and she identifies people in categories of birds and their characteristics, and it's quite fascinating. And I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to listen to the audiobook once it comes out. But it's, I've used the Myers-Briggs for years, but it's just sort of that self-awareness tool. And then not only who am I and how do I come across to people, but how might I shift my language so that this other person can hear me? Because if the people you work with are not controllers, they hear your language as a controller, as an order, and they're going to go, no way, honey.
They're going to resist, right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's really positive. Do you have some how do you teach some of those language skills? Do you have them practice, or how do you, teach them how to talk to each other differently?
Yeah, that's a good question, Sue. I don't know if I necessarily teach them different language, but I do work with them on thinking about how they come across to other people. And just like you said, the controller, I think I'm just, you know, stating something or asking for something, but they hear something else
Yeah.
because of my tone or the way that, I come across. So just helping them with deeper self-discovery of
Uh,
what their saboteur actually looks like to other
uh,
people. And also just learning how to catch the saboteur. And so one way that they can catch it and start to quiet those, because really it's their thought patterns that
mhm.
are coming through, is doing something called PQ reps. And PQ reps are just taking a moment to become fully present, and you can close your eyes when you're doing it, and then connecting with one of your five senses. So
Okay.
I show them how to do PQ reps to quiet all the thinking and the overthinking,
Sure,
and
sure.
to really be able to hear somebody else when they're talking, to listen fully, because that's a big problem on leadership teams. They're not actually listening to each other because they're frantic in their minds.
Yeah,
So calming that down, learning that little technique of the PQ reps that they could do before their team meetings every
yeah,
time,
yeah,
or during the day, anytime on their own. They don't have to do it as a group, but doing that opens up their ears and calms them down, and they can better hear each other. So,
that reminds me of I'm on a thread now in LinkedIn, and the big buzzword for about 6 months has been when you're listening, that you're fully present.
yes.
And I would hunch that that process helps me to become fully present. And then I'm so different to my team when I'm really there and I don't have an agenda in the back of my head.
Mhm.
And
Presence.
yeah, and so that sounds to me like that's what you aim for.
Mhm.
Yeah, I used to have I called it take a nap before your next meeting, NAP.
Oh,
And
wow, I
that
like
means
that.
it's the very same thing, only you know, a non-anxious presence is what it meant. And so what am I thinking, feeling, and wanting before I go into this meeting? How can I lower my stress and
Mhm.
come in with a positive energy of being fully present?
Yes, before a meeting, that is so key because meetings get us anxious for whatever reason. Because sometimes we're coming in with our agenda, we want our ideas heard, we
Yeah,
want, to push people to do this or that, or, and
yeah,
we're just like ready. And it's like, whoa, that is not the energy to bring to a meeting.
no. And then I used to find I would do that, but I also am highly empathetic, and I'm really good at catching other people's negative energy. And so, I've got to put up those guardrails before I go into that meeting so that I don't I don't become a sponge.
Yes.
You
And
know,
that one of the things I teach women is about mirror neurons. So, mirror neurons allow you to pick up on others' emotional states. And that's why sometimes you'll see someone yawn and it causes you to yawn, or you'll be talking to a friend or a loved one and they're upset or crying, and you mirror that. Well, you can, leaders need to have their energy level be one or two levels higher than everybody else's when they come into a meeting. That means they need to do their PQ reps. They
yeah,
need to take a nap before the meeting or whatever it is, and come into that meeting with high, good energy, because then that's going to lift the mood of the
yeah,
meeting. That's
yeah,
going to lift everybody to their energy
yeah.
rather than bringing everybody down if they come in negative. So a lot of times the leader is setting the tone
Sure.
without even realizing it because of those mirror neurons.
Oh, absolutely. And that is, to be that aware is powerful. And so, I mean, that's really the leadership lesson. It's that awareness and how to, you're not manipulating, but you're opening it up so that other people feel, we all of us have done it naturally in classrooms. It's much easier to do with
Yes.
little bodies. But
Yes.
we somehow get intimidated when we have other adults around us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we tend to bring our energy down if we think that others are in a bad mood or they don't want to be in the meeting or these things are happening, then we tend to kind of go down. Whereas we need to keep it up, keep hot, stay high energy,
Yeah.
enthusiastic, joyful in a true way, not a fake way. Because
Right.
fake as an energy is not going to work. It's got to be real,
Right. Right.
Guys. And it's
So Monica, tell us a little bit about you as a kid growing up. I mean, how did you get to where you are right now? You said that you were a teacher, made you feel like you wanted to go that direction, and tell us a little bit about you as a person growing up and your life story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am this won't come as a surprise. I'm the oldest of three kids.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
not a surprise. Like, I'm the oldest, so I would make my brother and sister like play school but I was the teacher.
Right.
And I very much was I think kind of just like a little mother and a caretaker
Right.
for my siblings. And at a young age, I think I kind of knew that I wanted to teach or inspire or somehow be in charge. Like being in
Right.
charge was like a big deal for me. Like I wanted to be in charge and be. Nowadays, I don't, but back then, I guess I do. Be careful what you ask for. But I kind of always had that leadership energy. That leader, I always just was a person that was trusted to be a leader. So yeah, it's funny because the school district that I went to school in, a suburb here in Dallas, I also ended up being a teacher there.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was really cool to go back to the school district that I went to for kindergarten through 12th grade and come back and be a teacher in the district. So that was really wonderful. So yeah, I went to school initially. I wanted to do journalism. But then I figured out, I'm like, well, I'm not the best writer and didn't come as natural to me. So I changed it to business. Then I got into those algebra courses and those economics courses. And I was like, nope, we're going to change this again.
That'll cure you. Yeah, cure you. That's that direction. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
the math was not it for me. So I was like, you know what? Let me just change it to teaching. And I changed my major to teaching when I was in college. And I ended up, getting the degree, did the student teaching. And it took me a couple years, but I landed a job as a kindergarten teacher. So that's where I ended up. But yeah, I'm born and raised in Dallas. I've been here my whole life. Love it here. It's home. I think I'll always just be a Dallas girl.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I feel like I'm leaving things out, but yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question about, you're calling it control, but it really is leadership. And you had it at an early age.
Mhm.
I sometimes call it the leadership germ because you know what I mean? Probably from a young age, you were always in class and outside of class appointed to be the person in charge.
Mhm.
People saw it in you, and you
Mhm.
probably have always been a good facilitator, a good organizer, and people saw that in you. And sometimes we call it control, but it is a gift of administration.
Oh
You
yeah.
you
The
know,
saboteurs are strengths. So the controller, it's a strength.
yeah,
You just don't want to use it too much in every situation. I don't have to be the leader. I think that's what I learned over time. It's like you're not the leader in every sometimes you can sit back and let somebody else So I
Sure.
think that's where, but you are so right, Sue. Yes, I agree.
A lot of times it could be organic too, because there's times that you show up when nobody else is showing up, and I picture myself standing in a line with all these people, like Red Rover, somebody cross over you look to your left, and nobody is coming forward, so you show up and you say yes, and that's how and then you follow through with what you do. And I think that's part of exactly what happens, Monica, is that nobody else is coming to the plate, so you see this gap and you say, okay, I'll move forward. And that's not a bad thing, but like you said, sometimes then we over function for everyone else instead of letting somebody else be the one to
Yeah.
do Red Rover, come on over.
Yes.
Well, and we do, I find the most difficult leadership quality to teach is delegation.
Yeah.
And it's because the leader doesn't want to let go of it. But the most important part of teaching leaders how to delegate is you don't just hand off something. You have to train them. And that takes what, you need to go back to your teacher role and teach every step and let them do guided practice and, monitor them. And I had a gal who kind of trained through that process last year, kind of a small business owner. And it took her, once she hired this gal, I said, it's going to take at least 6 months. Slow down. Don't think 2 meetings are going to do it. And then she did the, monitoring it. So the gal felt comfortable and, but she trained her. So she trained her like it was her doing it. So there she could let go a lot more easily. But that's a lot of the reason why if people, and then when you delegate something and a month later you pull it away from them, then they're not going to show up for you again.
Yeah. And I think it requires trust too. Sometimes leaders don't fully trust other people to do it. But we have to let go of that. And sometimes it depends on what it is, but the activity or the action or the task, it doesn't have to be done exactly how the leader would do it. As long as it gets done and it's, 85% right. Some of those tasks don't have to be perfect. Now there are some things that you do need to, make sure are perfect, but if it's 85% correct and you trust them and let them do it, you train them, then you got to let it go.
So Monica, tell us the story about, so you've worked with teams that were really not functioning well. How did you walk them through that? And what did the success story look like? I mean, have you seen it go full circle so that you saw the fruits of your labor?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've worked with a few teams, I've worked with individual clients also. And I've worked with groups that didn't know each other. So groups of education, and that's my favorite. That's my favorite because they can learn from each other and they don't have a past history and built up resentments or whatever. So I think that, repeat your question again so I can make sure.
So the things that you're doing, so you find a team that's not functioning or they don't know each other, like what you were talking about with a newbie group of people. You get them to that point, and what was the what did the success story look like when you were finished? Because Sue can actually has physical response to knowing what she accomplished when she came into our group and made a difference. So how did you make a difference? How did you see that all come about?
So what happens is I also enroll them into the positive intelligence curriculum. Okay. So there's coursework. Okay. Yeah, there's an app that Positive Intelligence has created, and it has 7 weeks of coursework. And so they go through the coursework on their own. And then they come back with me when we meet weekly, and we talk about what they learned in the course. We talk about what's going on in their world. and I, coach them through different scenarios, or, go back and reteach some of the things that they learned, about the saboteurs and the opposite of the saboteurs, which is the
Oh,
sage. The sage is the inner essence. It's the deeper, wiser part of us. And so learning how to tap into that and to speak from that
uh-huh.
point, not to speak from your saboteurs. And so, yeah, the success there is managing stress better. I see them when I come in, the energy levels like,
Right.
everything's urgent. Everything's crazy, everything's bad. And then when I'm done with them, after they've done the coursework, the 7 weeks, 7 weeks minimum is what I work with them. You can see that it's so much calmer. They have managed the stress. They brought the stress
Uh-huh.
down. See that not everything's urgent. They know that it was their own saboteurs that were
Right.
causing all of the anxiety, the fear, the stress, so that's the biggest thing I see with clients, is that they are slowing down, they're pausing, they're becoming more present, they're releasing the stress, and they're learning that they can work from a healthier place. They're learning that I can put myself first. I can start going to work out in the morning, or I can do yoga. I can do these things to set myself up for
Mhm.
success, so I'm not coming into work like
Right.
already frustrated and, emotionally hot charged when I walk into
Mhm.
work. So, yeah, so those are some of the
Well, and
outcomes.
I'm thinking if they're doing that as a group, they're supporting each other and reminding each other of the certain
Right.
tools that
Right.
you're giving them,
Right.
you know.
Yes.
So let's go back to your early days in the classroom. What are some good things that you learned as a teacher, facilitator, as a kindergarten, second grade teacher that you've been able to apply to adult learning?
Oh my goodness. That's a really good question. I hadn't thought about that. You learn so much from kids. I
Yeah.
think, one thing I know for sure is, like I told you a little while ago about the sage, and the sage is the deeper, wiser part of
Mhm.
us. It's you without the saboteurs, without the overthinking, without the anxiety, without the fear. If you ever observe a child, children naturally operate from the sage. They are joyful, they're enthusiastic, they're looking for the good in people, they're looking for the good in situations. They take risk, they're curious, they're just really, their spirit just shines really brightly, and they don't have the saboteur interference. They don't have those voices, those patterns of thought that, end up being, sabotaging them. So they don't have that. So it's so beautiful to watch children, because I think we forget how to be playful.
Right.
We forget how to be joyful. We forget how to be curious. We have so many limitations in our minds as adults, where kids have nothing but possibilities, and they're so creative. So teaching kindergarten was amazing to get to see
Yeah.
that. They were up for anything. I mean, you could make anything exciting. And they were excited. And I think that's when I learned. I didn't know about mirror neurons back then, or neuroscience or anything, but I knew that how I showed up in the morning really, really
Mhm.
mattered. So I had to, no matter what I was going through, I still had to come in and be really sharp in first thing in the morning. And that's good. It was good for me because I naturally am a morning person. I'm fresher in the
Mhm.
morning. So I would come in with this high energy and enthusiasm. It's a little bit like being a clown, and so working with adults, I can bring some of that high energy to I do workshops to the workshops that I do, or to the coaching sessions, or when I'm facilitating, so that, that happy energy, that good energy and enthusiasm, it naturally rubs off on other
Yeah.
people. So I definitely use
Good.
that.
Setting the tone, setting the environment. And I remember, I don't know, you're probably too young to remember Madeline Hunter, but her number one of education was the anticipatory set. What are you going to do to create the environment so that everyone can learn.
Well,
I've heard of anticipatory set.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we felt really strongly about when Sue came in, our story is that she came in to coach our program when I was my first or second year of working there as a coordinator for the program, and I was the supervisor, and my boss brought Sue in, and it just was a great learning time for us. But I wanted people to enjoy coming to work. I wanted them to love their work. I wanted because it was going to bring a different feel to the whole program, to the families and the children we served. If they felt supported, if they felt like it was a safe place to come to work, if they knew where they were, the why of what we're doing, and it made such a huge difference. And I sense that that's exactly the same kind of thing that you're doing with the people you're working with. Joy in what they're doing, because if you feel impassioned about your job, it's not a job anymore.
Hmm. Yeah. I think people forget the why, why they even went into the profession, why they decided to work for a nonprofit, why they decided to become a teacher, because they get bogged down by the work, and a lot of our systems don't set people up for success. They don't. And
Right.
anytime you have to be at work all day for 8 hours, there needs to be some type of wellness
Yes.
component. There has to be some support when you sometimes people are working and they're spending more time at work than they are spending with their families
Right.
or their
Oh, yes, for
kids.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So there has to be a level of compassion and care on a human level, and not just like this concern about productivity and being productive. When In education, when we started having more accountability, and Sue, I think you probably were a principal maybe around those times of like the late 90s and the 2000s with No Child Left Behind and all that. More accountability, yeah, it had its pros, but the cons were that it added more to teachers' plates, to principals' plates. It added more work, and it's kind of complicated things too. And so I think that made the job more stressful, like working in
Right.
schools. And over time, that's why we've seen the high
Yeah.
turnover. That's why, I think the average tenure for principals is like 4 years in
Yeah.
Texas. So it's just, and teachers aren't staying long
Mm-mm.
either. So it's a problem that needs to be
It does, and
addressed.
it really, leadership can help, because what happens is principals and administrators get bogged down in thinking that curriculum's the answer, and it isn't. We didn't
Mhm.
go, and most of us did not go into teaching to have curriculum drive our teaching. We went into it because we
Mhm.
wanted a little autonomy. We wanted, I can keep my kids accountable and teach them what they need to learn, and still have fun. You
Meet
know,
the standard. You can still meet the standard. In fact, in early childhood education, we had and there was a lot of good things about it, but then seemed to stifle the imagination and creativity of some of my teachers, because they were just going by the
Mhm.
book instead of letting themselves be. And like you said, Monica, then it becomes boring, and you lose
yeah, drains
your
your
why.
energy.
You lose your why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
always say, and this is for adults and for children, whoever the learner is, I always say that fun is the F word in learning. We don't learn unless we're having fun and that we have that
That's
high
right.
energy. And it's just so important. And we can't get so grave about everything that, oh, we're going to hammer this in your head and you're going to learn. And guess what?
You're gonna pass the
Yeah, you're going to
test.
pass the
Right,
test.
right.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Never has and never will. So, Monica, it sounds like you absolutely love your job. And it maybe isn't even a job, your work, your passion. Do you
Yeah.
have something that, what's next for what you're going to do next? You have
Yeah. I like that question. I do love my job because I really like inspiring people, and I like to help them grow as human
Yeah.
beings. I love mental fitness, physical fitness. I think it's just so important. It's added so much to my life when I kind of discovered the saboteurs and discovered, peace,
Yeah.
how to have peace and like calm this, mind
Yeah.
chatter. So I love to do all of that. And I think what's next for me is just to continue to scale and build my business. I really want to work with school systems and nonprofits outside of Texas too. I think opening it up to, nationwide, because we have Zoom, we have like all these things, and of course I can travel. So I think, talking with educators in other states and working with them is going to be really impactful too. I think in the state of Texas, it's been difficult just because I feel like Texas is stuck in its ways and how it's always done things, and there's not a lot of room for change, even though there are some people pushing for a lot of change in the school systems. So I want to be part of that change. I want to be part of the change in how we do
Uh-huh.
school, how people show up, what they're expected to do. And so, for example, one thing that I want to work towards in the future is like creating these calming rooms inside of schools, and they would be for students and for teachers. There are schools here locally in Dallas that have these rooms. Right now, they just have them for students, but I want them for teachers. A space where they can go disconnect. Maybe they can go, meditate or sit in quiet, or, just a beautiful space for them to um, just, take a moment in their day to have some
Yeah.
calm, to have some peace, because it's go, 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 sense of urgency all the time. We really need spaces for just to decompress, and not the teacher's lounge,
Right.
like a green space. Maybe it has plants, maybe it has music, it has scents, it has, all of those type of things. So I could see myself like getting that organized
Uh,
inside of a school, and then working with the
I
leaders.
remember back when I was working not only with Sandy's group, but other um, young learners, kindergarten classes, first grade. There wasn't even a adult space where adults could sit comfortably. They had to sit in the kids' chairs.
The kids' chairs.
You know what I mean? So school is an adult learning place, not just a kid learning place.
Yes. So my space will have comfortable chairs. I'm glad you said that. Like, you are so right about that. There weren't any comfortable, like, I like bought a chair with my own money and brought it into the school to be able to,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, and
to-
another big
Thank
thing with system change now and is they're calling it alignment. But getting the components right to build that school and make it work, because some of these issues that keep coming up are because our foundation isn't right. It
Yep.
isn't correct. So I'm glad you're out there working with the system
Yeah.
and that you've got some aspirations for that, because it's very, very important.
Well, and I
Um,
think the stuff that you're teaching, Monica, we keep bringing that back to the fact how good it is for you as an individual, family, with your community, with your not just for work. These same principles work for life learning,
yeah,
like you said before. It's for the wellness of you as a person.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So, two things as we start to close. We always ask, what's one takeaway for you? So, we're going to ask that, and I'll have Monica start and then Sandy, and then I'll kind of wrap it up. But before I forget, Monica, will you come back on and share with us? I have an idea of maybe I'm opening a new series called Open Mic, where you could come on for 10 minutes and maybe teach Sandy and I what our saboteurs are and just kind of do a little play, you know what I mean? So,
Would
yeah,
love
and
it.
show
Yeah.
everybody what you do. And we'd
Yeah.
love to have you back. And then if you have any other ideas too,
Yeah.
we kind of would love
Yes.
to have you back. So,
Send
That's
send us a
great.
link.
Thank you.
Send us a link information Sue can embed it into our information too, so that people can.
Yeah, I will. Good idea.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Monica, what is one takeaway from our conversation today?
The takeaway I have is that, as humans, we have more in common than we do
Yeah.
differences. We have, just talking to you guys, we could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours because we have so much in
Yeah.
common. Being educators, and Sue, you having been a principal, and us having been teachers before, and all of
We're
that.
moms.
And moms, yeah. So it's just wonderful to talk to people and find the commonalities, find the common ground. That's really, and hearing your lens as a coach has been really helpful, Sue. I'm sure perhaps you've been doing this longer than me.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's okay. That wise sage, it comes out in me. I just turned 75 this week, so
Wow. Happy birthday. Happy
thank
belated.
you, and I'm very proud of it. And I too love what I do. So, okay, Sandy, take away.
Well, I love the reminder that Monica gave us, and the fact that you cannot live life in an urgency mode of action, and that you need to prioritize, because she's totally correct in the fact that if that's how you live, you wear yourself down so quickly, and you're not taking care of the most important things. If you don't prioritize, you're not taking care of the really most important things that you need to address,
Yeah,
because you haven't figured out what it is that I need to be dealing with right now. So yeah, that was a good reminder, Monica. Thank you.
yeah, good priority. Thank you. And as we're closing, I'm thinking of another question I want to ask you, but I'll maybe hold it till next time you can think about it. But I would love to know, because it has to do with this, your sense of being a leader and knowing what the group needs. But how are you using your intuition when you're in a group? And I'm getting better at following my intuition. But it took me a while. At first I used to be scared to say something because I was worried what the people would think. So I go ahead and give us a little taste of your answer, and then I'll close.
Yeah, I walk into every situation with my sage energy. I've learned to really quiet those saboteurs. So I do my PQ reps, I charge up my energy, before I walk into any type of situation. And I think, that really carries me through in so many situations, because my sense of calm, my peace, it kind of trickles down and it has that effect on others. So I work really hard at, like I said, detaching emotionally from outcomes. I model these things that I'm teaching to others so that I'm showing up as, doing the things that I'm asking them to do.
Good. Because it really is true. We're more than enough.
Yes.
You are more than enough to serve the community you're meant to serve. So
I love that. That's one of my affirmations.
yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I think it was Carl Jung that said that we're more than enough. Anyway, we're just so happy you were on with us today, and we're going to invite you back soon. And I want you to hang on just a minute. I'm going to close the recording, and then we're going to do a little debrief. Okay? Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.